One thing that I value so much from the films you both make is how I can count on encountering feelings, images, and thoughts I've never experienced before. What have you both plugged into or latched onto in your individual lives that you feel best contributed to the kind of art you make and the stories you tell?
Wow, that's a
That's a,
question.
well, that's a very hard question. I I think like the answer is maybe surprising, but I think it's just we're curious and open-minded people, and I think we want to find out things about the world, and whatever we find, we want to be able to discuss openly and honestly. And we feel that many films and artwork, or artworks of art nowadays, what they do is they try to show the world as a place how it should be in a way. It's all about utopia and showing people like a better world in hope that they will behave according to what they see on the screen, which is something we're not interested in. We're interested in showing like the business of our societies and all the trouble there is, hoping that we'll be able to spark discussion to actually improve something in our world. So I think we're just curious and optimistic people, and that leads to this kind of films. I don't know.
Yeah. So was that gradual at all, or is it pretty instant? Like when you were recognizing that, for instance, let's look at it through the art that you both create. Were you like recognizing that there were certain traditions and certain rituals and certain ways that storytelling was being done that you were like, that's not who I am, and this is where I want to go?
Not such a conscious, it was never such a conscious, I think, decision or process. So, I mean, we come from different, maybe generations even.
Mm.
So what unified us was watching movies in the first place. So when I met Severin, he was like 13 or 14 years old. I was 20 years older, and we kind of connected by watching movies together, very different movies. And we kind of found out, but it was more kind of emotionally, maybe, or um, that we kind of are fond of the same kind of movies. We just fell in love. We just fall in love with the same movies, and it doesn't depend on the genre. So it can be art movies like, I don't know, John Cassavetes, or can be like Friday 13th. So it's just about movies kind of also which hurt you or confront you with yourself. And if you're honest and open, there are like some topics like death, which is very important in everyone's life. And of course, you can put that away and say, okay, I don't want to confront myself with that topic, but we kind of like that. We kind of like to be confronted. So
And I think like we're like huge cinephiles and yeah, lovers of films. We know a lot of like old films, film history and stuff like that. But we, I think, and actually I think that's a good thing. We never, when doing a film, as Veronica said, consciously think about those movies stylistically. So we wouldn't like what I sometimes read in interviews with newer American directors, they say, I did this shot exactly that way because it was the same in a Kubrick film.
Mm.
And like that's not how we think about it. I think like it all goes like all those movies that we watched and loved, they go into our subconscious, and of course they shape the way we tell the stories. But we only think about the story and its characters when planning on doing a film, and not about like other movies and how they did like certain shots and stuff like that. I think
Mm.
that's too technical in a way for us. Like also with the Devil's Bath, we felt there is this, it's mainly based on one woman who lived in the 18th century in Austria. There is very detailed records of interrogations that she went through. And we wanted to do justice to her and her situation and her life. And this was way more important than referencing specific stylistics in other films.
I think we always open up to what is real. So I think realism, in a way, kind of, even if it's a constructed story, even if it's almost, some people always say, say that it's kind of a fairy tale we tell, which is true. There are always like an aspect of fairy tales in our movies, but still we also let real world in our movies, and that's very important to us always to check, okay, would that person or that character really do that? And if we criticize ourselves, we kind of, we just talked about that 2 days ago. Sometimes we overdo this even. So
the movie because we want to be too true to something, and then actually the movie gets boring because we just stick to that. So I think it's an ongoing process, but yeah, those are things that are important to us.
I hear you. So speaking of feelings and images, I'd like to get a little more into the relationship between the two in your work. I feel like there's such a balance of beauty with upsetting feelings. The actions at the beginning of this film, you know, with the woman throwing life at the top of the waterfall, but then there's the wide shot of it that allows us to see the entire moment for what it is. But the waterfall is beautiful, and I love the imagery of the fog and the building structures, and like how it could represent like the fogginess of the mind, what have you, whatever your interpretation may be. I'm curious about like moments like that where the lighting may be beautiful and breathtaking but the scene may involve cutting a limb off or what have you. What's your approach to creating beauty out of horror in the relationship between feeling and imagery?
I think, I mean, there is
the ugliness, kind of what you are describing, and I think, you know, you have in life actually, or also in movies, or in our existence, we have always both, and nature usually is breathtakingly beautiful, and also people are.
Yeah.
But if you look closer, and there are lots of, as you said that before, abysses, and we have to kind of be aware of that. Or I think, yeah.
it creates a sort of tension that we like, that is beautiful and ugly at the same time. And for example, I used to work as a paramedic and remember situations where you like somebody dies and you try to how do you say that? Like you're doing CPR, and sometimes it was like somewhere outside, and sometimes you realize at the same time, or the light, like the sun, it looks totally beautiful. So if you think if somebody looked at it from the outside, it would be a very beautiful image, but still it's horrible and horrifying at the same time. And I think there is some tension in this contrast.
I know now. It's a really difficult question to answer. Our DP always says there is no darkness if you have no light, which is very true. And so this also goes for what you are describing. There is no ugliness or no horrifying things or no darkness if you don't have beauty as well. So I think this is what it makes interesting.
Yeah.
And visible even.
Yeah, that's because like it's we always get asked the same questions, and this is like all questions are like you ask our first questions for us, so we take 3 attempts to answer them, but there might be something.
Can I ask about like what is your process on set with the actors for normalizing such horrific moments? Like whether it's drinking a certain liquid or even the moment where you're kind of like in shock as an audience member watching, they're essentially playing like pin the tail on the donkey, but it's whacking a live chicken.
Yeah, that was a very fun game we researched. They actually did that on weddings, and of course we couldn't, we could not we
could not
refuse to show that.
To show that, I mean, all the horrific, horrifying things you mentioned, they came out of the historic research, so like the drinking of a certain substance, and also like this hair in the neck,
the medical
the medical
procedures.
procedures. They all kind of, yeah, they all really took place. And yeah, I mean, with the actors, and
I think it's like the most difficult moment for the actors are the very emotional ones, I think. And I think it's more difficult to achieve those than the horrifying ones, like the acts of violence, because they're always, if you shoot a film, they're very technical. It's
Yeah.
because you, of course, you never hurt anybody for real. So there is a lot of prosthetics involved and fake blood involved and stuff like that. So if you shoot a scene like that, it's really technical, and the difficulty lies in hiding like all the technical aspects of it. And the actors are like with us in trying to achieve something that you don't feel like or to achieve a scene that the audience doesn't feel how fake it all is. When it comes to, let's say, the confession scene of Agnes, what Anya did there was really important. And I think this is the this is the more difficult thing to achieve. And we shot the whole film chronological up to that point, so she could grow into that, and she really prepared for that scene because there is like nothing about is fake. There is no technical things. It was just her confessing. The world needs to feel normal to them, and I think that's maybe that's a different way of answering the question, but I think that's what we invested most time and energy in. That it's like, other than in many period films, it doesn't just recreate a cliche that everybody already knows, but we really had the actors live in those houses. They wore the costumes for weeks and weeks and weeks. They did the work, they cooked in the houses. So everything needed to feel normal to them, up to a point, of course, like they didn't kill chickens every night.
Yeah.
But like all the other stuff, like the daily life, should feel normal to them. I think that was the goal. And I think one film reference, which is other than what we, or it's actually it's the same like as we put it before, because it's a film that we love a lot and that's in our DNA, so to speak. But we've not rewatched it before The Devil's Bath, and I only rewatched it afterwards. But it does a very similar thing. It's the Ballad of Narayana by Imamura from '83. Um, which was to me totally stunning because I experienced the same thing you're describing now, because the world is absurd and still it feels totally normal to anybody or everybody living in this specific world. And I think subconsciously we set out to do the same thing. And like, if you saw it, we hope we achieved, but we only saw it in other movies where it worked.
and plus you need, or we need to, or we always want to create an atmosphere of trust, and this starts way before the shoot, of course. So you need to have, trust, whatever, that, yeah, you need to know the actors and actresses, and they need to know us.
Yeah.
So if this is kind of a good relationship amongst us, then you can create like anything.
Right.
We had the opportunity to shoot the film nearly 1 year earlier, and we pushed it like for another year just to really get to know Anya and give her a chance to get to know us, because we knew this is about trust. She's not a professional actress, so it's only gonna work if we all really trust and like each other, which turned out to be very true. And it was, let's say, the maybe most satisfying relationship we ever had with an actress.
Wow. Well, that patience really paid off. I know we're just about out of time, so I'll cut you loose by asking, I feel like you both have explored sin across your work very beautifully. What would you say is the biggest difference in what you understand about sin in the darkness of humanity. We kind of touched on it a little bit here, but from Goodnight Mommy to now with The Devil's Bath.
So I would need, I think, again, a second to think about it. Yeah, I think, and I don't know, like that's not the different sins we talk about in our movies, but I think what unifies them is that it's all like the sin of or fault of society in a way. And like society might be small in Goodnight Mommy because it's like family, which is the smallest cell of society, but still it's people not communicating honestly and openly with each other. And in The Devil's Bath, the world got way bigger, but still it's society and church in that case that put pressure on our characters, and not only on Agnes. I mean, she feels it most severely because she's the most sensitive one and maybe the most artistic character. So it hits her the hardest, but I think society puts pressure on all of those characters. Her husband is hiding, like he has his own secrets and he just wants life to, like they all just want to lead like a good life in a way, and there is no evil character, but still like the pressure that society puts on all of those characters has them create hell for each other, which is something that is also true for the lodge, where actually the purgatory the characters are trapped in is something they are actually doing to each other in a way. And I think it's not one person's fault, or it's not always the other person's fault, but it's always a thing that comes out of society in a way.
Maybe things are more defined by society than by individual persons.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this was fascinating. Thank you so much for continuing to work my brain. I appreciate it very much. So,
Thank you for sharing your brain with us.
Yeah.